This is Justin Onat Graham.
This is Nariba Shepherd.
And this is Terms of Service. Ooh, that felt nice.
It was way better than last time.
You know, we're evolving.
Yeah,
we're
evolving. We're going to figure it out.
Absolutely,
eventually.
all the time. So, how have you been, Nariba?
Well, I got a job, so I'm working again.
Yes.
I feel old.
Okay.
I realize that I haven't been a full-time line cook in a long time.
Okay.
And I'm ready for it to be the end of week 2. So then I feel like a person again.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
How are you?
I'm well.
You good?
I'm well. Yeah, we're recording in, 2020, which we all know what that entails. But we're dropping this in 2021, so I have nothing but positivity about the drop.
Okay, so we have Future Minds today then.
Future Minds.
Future Minds, heard.
Absolutely.
Then it's lit.
Stay lit. Been lit. So let's get into it.
All right. So, should we talk about who's with us today?
Yeah, of course. We have our first guest.
Yeah.
This is exciting.
Oh, yeah, for real, though. Also,
this is really exciting.
Experiment time.
Yes. Hi, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be your first guest.
Would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. My name is Joey Pham.
AKA Flavor Supreme.
Flavor Supreme.
You damn right.
And is it weird if I say, what's that, fam?
No, that's very common. Love it.
Okay. Okay. They're like, we heard this before. It's okay.
Ready to go.
I'll get more original as as we progress. It's fine. But also, what up, fam?
Hey, what up? I'm Joey Pham. I'm a Gemini sun.
You damn right. Yes, thank you so much. As an Aries, I appreciate your upfront.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Air, fire, okay. Thanks for having me. Love being here. I feel at home.
Good. Well,
okay.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah. Are you
this is a cozy place? And as an Aquarius, I'm learning more about astrology, and I understand that Gemini. Big ups to Gemini, right?
I mean, how do you feel about
being
a Gemini? Because I know a lot about them and I appreciate them, but I feel like they get a bad rap.
They do, because people don't understand them. They're twins. They're dealing with 2 people
all the time.
So, if you're not ready to be flexible and be faced with 2 people, you're just going to be like, what the fuck's going on? Oh, can I curse?
Oh, of course.
Oh, yeah. See?
Come on now. Come on.
This is an industry podcast.
Real industry, real talk, no bullshit.
No bullshit.
Love this. Okay, that's why I'm here.
Yes.
So be who you are. What have you been up to? What's...
And your background, all that.
Yeah.
That good stuff.
A little bit.
So I've been working in the food industry since I was 16, 14. Let's be real.
Heard that.
And I initially got in the industry by working for my family, who owns a Vietnamese French sandwich company called Balea, and there's one on Broadway in Argyle.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And I worked for them since when I was 16 to I think about 23, and then I was like, hey, I'm gonna go finish up college and I'm gonna go on my own journey with my work life. And then I decided a little bit into about my 3rd year into my bachelor's degree that I wanted to go into food, so I started working for other people.
Yeah.
And now I guess you could call me a baker. I call myself a cake zaddy.
Cake zaddy.
Cake zaddy.
Yeah, because you just can't say zaddy.
No.
It's
cake
zaddy.
Zaddy.
Cake.
Cake. Yes.
Yeah, I bake like sustainability minded cakes. And I use seasonal produce, and I run my own cake business called Flavor Supreme.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. Sounds delicious to me.
I may or may not have had a bite from someone who was lucky enough to eat some of their cake, but I wasn't disappointed.
Thank you.
Give them your money. It's fine.
Yes, please push your money this way.
We're just trying to live here.
And
for
less,
real, though.
and less about trying to live, because that's basic level shit. We should be trying to build, trying to thrive,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera.
I know that we're
you
supposed to be in the mindset of 2021, but 2020 is a year of survival.
But we're
Yeah.
in 2020 right
Okay, all
now,
right,
so
all
we
right.
can be as 2020 as necessary because
True.
it's real shit.
True. And 2021 is about thriving. I was
Couldn't
telling
agree more.
Yeah.
I was telling Justin earlier that 2020 was definitely the time where we lay our foundation, and that's the most painful part.
Mm-hmm.
It's all of the labor-intensive groundwork that we have to do. But in 2021, we have that done. We have done it for ourselves and our communities. So it's our time to move forward and build bigger.
Oh, yeah. I would agree with that, I
completely agree.
guess. It does make sense.
About building
About
bigger.
building bigger.
Because
and,
sometimes you
like,
just gotta burn some of that shit to the ground.
it's like,
Because the shit is dated.
Listen.
It's tired.
Yep.
I'm
Period.
working on it. I'm in therapy. I'm working about it. But, it's hard for me to see past the doom and gloom, which is why I'm glad that we're here and we're talking about things and how to make it better moving forward in general. And that's what we're getting to. So I'm just going to go into a full fangirl situation. So when
Well, let me join you.
Yeah. So when we started talking about people that we want to talk to, my brain went to wish list level, and I was
Okay.
like, Joey fam, because you did a thing that I thought about for a million years and never committed to doing it because I was afraid of everything. I was afraid of not being able to find another job in the industry. I was afraid of losing whatever job I had at the time by talking to people about problematic behavior. So I feel very excited that recording this a week before Christmas, I'm making it happen.
Christmas came early.
You made it happen.
Santa's here.
Santa Zaddy.
All right, Zaddy. See, you beat me to it. You beat me to it.
Bring in the gifts
Absolutely.
this year.
Yeah.
Everyone's
So,
been good.
maybe. I mean, yes.
Everyone here has been good.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much. That's so sweet, and so glad to hear that someone else shared feelings that I was also feeling when I, did a massive call out. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you need to just rip the Band-Aid off. And I feel like this time, COVID-19 era is a time
the
where
forced
yeah.
Band-Aid rippage.
Yeah, it allowed a lot of people to have conversations that we've had separately, with our clusters of folk within the industry, but not with or not in an accountable way, holding someone accountable instead of just venting. So, I mean, I was very interested in hearing how you sort of moved from within the industry structure to the I don't want to say it's the outskirts because it's now the new normal. Everyone has moved to a different method of making money within the industry. structure. So like,
The alternative economy?
yes.
Yeah.
I wanted you to sing it first to make it a more
She's like, I was
organic
trying to
segue.
prompt.
And
I'll be a better
cute.
prompter in the future. But yeah, like, if you want to talk to us a little bit about like the alternative economy and explain what it is for people who may not be knowledgeable about it yet.
And also that road that brought you there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I heard the term alternative economy from Drawstring magazine, which is like a very radical magazine that started virtually because of the pandemic. And they talk about like all of the isms and what people are doing throughout this pandemic to like care for themselves and their communities. And once they said that, it just kind of stuck in my mind because the alternative economy exists outside of it borrows from, but it exists outside of the current capitalist structure that we have now. So, like running a business in it means you are using money to exchange goods, but sometimes you barter.
Yeah.
Or
Absolutely.
you set your own prices, but you know best as the laborer, the person who's doing the ground person to do the work, you know the value of that labor and you're able to ask for more or less depending on how you see it ethically.
Yeah.
A lot of people started participating in the alternative economy as a response to COVID-19 because they got furloughed and there aren't any real hopes of getting like a job within the current structure. So they're like, I'll start my own thing. I have gifts and I have skills and I'm just gonna run my own business for a bit and it might just exist outside of the structure. And a lot of people, I don't want to speak for them, but for me at least, it's been working great because I have a lot of support from community members.
Yeah.
And I also get to create my own structures and systems that really call me to hold myself accountable and then also call for the people that I'm working with to hold themselves accountable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing I learned about myself during this pandemic is that I need to work with other people because I cannot hold myself accountable. So I'm glad that like some people can do it all the time.
I think that like the accountability metric is as, individual as what you're trying to accomplish, right? And whether it's because you were furloughed from a position, you left because of, sincere reasons, or you wanted to try something new.
Yeah.
Accountability is a journey. I feel like, because there are some days to where like I'm holding myself like deep accountable, and then there are those other days to where I was just like, I can't even spell accountable, so don't look at me like that, okay? Because we're not doing that. So, I get it. Like overall, concept-wise, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, capacity is real. I mean, our capacities aren't going to be the same every day. There are days that I wake up.
Damn right.
Yeah, right? I mean, it depends on what we're going through personally.
Yeah.
As well as how we're dealing with the pandemic and how we're dealing with our trauma and if we got enough sleep, if we got enough water, if we're feeding ourselves well. Everybody's capacity is different, and if we, kind of take a deep breath into what we need and that we can give ourselves, that can change the capacity.
100%.
I agree with that. We were even like talking about that a little bit before we started recording about like structurally how the industry is set up now is like we cater to people who like don't want to have to cook for themselves, or they would prefer
Or
like
care for themselves.
or care
at
for
all.
themselves. And it's stressful because like, yeah, it's a pandemic and everything is like different, but the way that the industry has been moving for the most part has stayed the same. And we're going into like this holiday season where people are still not able to get the full holiday off because they're essential workers, whatever that may mean. And
that was never dictated by them, but dictated by the community.
Exactly.
Which is also really interesting. And if I can kind of elaborate on, just my brief interjection earlier, to where, because when we were talking about capacity, I was thinking about capacity in regards to personal capacity.
Yeah.
Right. And just through my time in the industry, literally now, every day, I wear my exhaustion as like a badge of honor, which is such a learned behavior that is improper, to say the least. Absolutely.
Agreed. Yeah.
And when we were talking about the capacity of taking care of themselves, I immediately thought of the guest as well, because they see the opportunity to be taken care of as a luxury to them, without being mindful of the possible capacity in which it takes to be cared of by someone else.
For sure.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Oh, that was my little tangent.
I always forget like about guests a little bit because my brain is so trained for like.
Oh, I forget about guests too. Okay. Yeah. All right. Listen.
What? I was like, that's why I stood in the back.
Okay. But there have been times that I have interacted with a guest. Couldn't have been me.
Oh, girl.
Couldn't have been me.
Yeah.
And I mean, but that's also like sort of going into.
I say that respectfully.
With all due respect.
Respect, quote unquote.
Can you hear
Even the air quotes?
Yes, every time.
Can you hear the air quotes in my voice? I took your line, Noriva. I'm sorry.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
We can share it.
Okay, so I think that like changing the language around like that experience, right? So like when I talk about like a client or a customer, I try and say somebody I'm working with, because like they made money and they're giving it to me, and they're compromising, they're compromising on their luxury based on my system. So like, I only have deliveries on Fridays and Saturdays, 12 to 3. So if they can't work with me on that, like, then maybe my service is not for them. So it's a compromise. Like, I'm providing this labor, I'm setting my boundaries, and then they're also going to set their boundaries, and they're also going to participate in this compromise with me.
I think I just got zaddied because
that was
my brain exploded.
Yeah, I mean, that was a real flip it and reverse it experience that we
Sometimes
had there.
Yeah, we just put it down for sure.
Yeah, and rewound the track. Because as I'm sitting here, and as someone that has extensive front of house experience, it's very easy to blame the guest, right? But also, Noriba, I would love your thoughts on this.
Mm-hmm.
As your experience in the back of house, how do you feel in regard to that same sort of thought process, but when it comes to front of house?
So I think that
It's like a chain.
It's like a chain. I think that because I've not owned anything that I've done personally, I've always worked under an owner. I don't set the expectations. And when I try to set expectations that sound reasonable for the establishment and the people that work within it, it's met with the thought process of a customer. Instead of it being like we are producing these things and like we will set our boundaries in a specific way. It's like it's set to the commercial standard. So Monday through Sunday, most places. And we have to be open and available for every single person that walks through the doors. And like it's all specifically about making money, but not necessarily about like the health of the people involved with it.
So like, because there's like a middle person, the middle person being like the owner of the establishment, they dismiss your needs entirely.
Yes.
They're like, we're going to prioritize the guest's experience, even at your expense.
Exactly. And that's what it is.
All the time.
Yeah.
And I think that you're like living in a model of like what I would like to see the industry move towards, because
A legit model of aspiration, in my opinion.
because like
Thank you.
if
Of course.
the owners set their boundaries and then like build their business around holding to those boundaries,
Oh, girl.
there's no room for interpretation of like what your worth is
Yeah.
in the cycle.
So, yes, and immediately in my mind is that shifts what's acceptable when it comes to the labor force versus ownership,
Yeah.
right? And that is what I think, obviously, just a lot of dialogue, accountability, et cetera, has been leading up to. But there is this like class divide within the working system that, you know, companies, brands, organizations, anything really have to choose a side, because we're past the point to where you can walk a fine line between both, because we continuously see false initiatives through activism. I mean, we're putting that 2021 energy out there, but also being mindful that we just went through the trauma, which was 2020, and realizing that when you say BLM or I identify with other and I identify with the movement, that you're committed to actually be a part of that movement and keep that movement alive, not a black square on your social media account, whatever. And we'll obviously get into that moving forward, but figuring out ways to have those conversations to create boundaries within your own workforce and empower the workers to feel respected in that regard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what you're talking about, in something that I envision in 2021, or even presently, I can embody this now by just doing the work that I'm doing within my business, but also within myself, is removing the pedestal, right? Like allowing people
Couldn't
to
agree
be
more.
their whole selves and not robbing them of their wholeness by dismissing their needs or like dismissing my needs and then, projecting that onto other people.
Exactly.
In the name of capitalism.
Like it's supposed to be the SOP,
Yeah.
standard operating procedures for people who don't know what SOP means.
So like a way that I try and remove that pedestal through my company, it's actually very easy for me as someone who's like in therapy and like is doing this work spiritually.
Yes.
And someone who gives a shit.
Yes.
Yeah, and someone who's like, who gives a fuck, right? Like, not that it comes easy, but it's like, it's interconnected with all of that. So, for example, someone that I work with told me that I wasn't being very kind to them and I wasn't supporting them enough. And I immediately was like, fuck, you know what? I've been burnt out and I've been so tired that I haven't been taking care of my own needs, and it's difficult for me to support this person, and they weren't even in my mind because I had tunnel vision of getting this work done, of doing, whatever business related things. And so I sat with myself for a few days and I was like, you know what? Yeah, I've been a shitty coworker and I've been a shitty friend, and I don't want to lose you because of my actions in my time of distress, and I want to change my attitude. And it wasn't my time to like get defensive or justify like why I was doing this, but I was clear on where I was at the time. And then I was like, here are ways that I can support you. Please let me know if there's anything else that I can include and change so that I'm not continuing to cause this harm to you. And like,
that's the energy that I'm trying to roll
That's
up in
what I'm
2021
saying.
on, because that's beautiful. Because
Yeah.
for me, I naturally get combative, which is something that I've always had to work on, because I've always just had like a deep sense of ownership. It's just who I am. So I always have to take a moment, be like, okay, let's see this from the other point of view, while also making sure that people are understanding where I'm coming from as well. And I feel like the sword has only sharpened in just through my experience in this industry.
Yeah.
Because you'll have slick-mouthed chefs that want to say anything, and there's...
Hi, that's my name. I'm sorry.
And I am who I am. Like, I'm gonna let you have that, but what we're not gonna do is skate past it.
Yeah.
oh yeah.
At all.
No.
Yeah.
But am I going to meet you outside? No, because when I go outside, I'm going home.
Yes.
I'm gonna go home.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go home. I don't want to talk to you more about this. I just want to go home. But also, you can't be talking crazy all the time, because what are we doing?
Yeah.
Because Nariba, as you have mentioned in the past, same team.
Yeah.
Team.
Same team. But the divide between different sections of service
Yes.
is like,
Mhm.
I just want it to not exist, and I think we can work there as soon as like people sort of get rid of the accountability shirt that we have been wearing this whole time and put on like a new understanding accountability shirt, which is like, instead of you not holding yourself accountable and you only hold other people accountable, it's like what you said, like this person came to you and they were like X, Y, and Z, and you were like, shit, let me sit with X, Y, and Z, and then you came back and you're able to explain where you're coming from, but you're also able to see what is needed by the other person. And I feel like I wasn't very good at that while I was sous chefing, but when I became an executive chef, it switched to, oh shit, like, I get it. I remember being a line cook. I remember feeling burnt out all the time. And one thing I took away from one of my old bosses is like, if you get paid the most, you should be there the most.
Oh.
And I know that's bad, but that's like, it's hard for me to like get out of that mindset of like, and I think,
agree
and
with
that
that.
comes from salary. Like,
yeah.
they
Coming
just
back
want
to
you
capitalism.
exactly
Yeah.
full circle. And all of my all of my mindset is structured that way. And I think like during the pandemic and starting to do like more charity work and like doing things in conjunction with other groups, I learned a lot about managing exactly what it is I want to be doing and only committing to what I can do.
Okay. I feel like so the way that I see it, as what you just described to me, is that you had this, like, if you get paid the most, you should be there the most, very literally in terms of like time and money.
Exactly.
But you literally dissected it and you took away the parts of it that you could apply, because you were present the most in that work that you were just doing.
Yeah.
In the
Correct.
things that you signed up for, in the causes that you were for. You were for it 100%, and you were there the most that you could be.
Exactly.
And like
Yeah.
that's it seems like you took away the part of it that you needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why it's like really hard
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
going back into the structure of like being in a restaurant, because I want to continue doing that work. And I feel like the people that I'm working with now are also on the same boat. And it's been really nice having more of like what I would want us to be like in the industry, to sort of like come in, everyone is like communicating about what they can and cannot do, and like distributing the work instead of it being like you are responsible for all of this and then the other person has like 2 things to do. And I feel like there's more equity when you are working with people who want to be in the same space.
Yeah,
Like-
absolutely.
And I
Absolutely.
just I want this
Completely,
bubble to
completely,
continue to move
completely agree.
forward in that way. And I think that with like alternative economies and self-care and like trying to put the humanity back in hospitality, it's like we could just do it. Can we just do it?
Yeah.
Are we doing it?
Well,
You're doing it.
okay.
You're totally doing it.
Well, I'm doing it in the way that I know how. There's no guidebook on this, you know? Just kind of like being like, what have I learned in life that I can apply to this right now? And like Nariba, we were talking about like consumerist holidays. Like one way to rehumanize it, the hospitality industry, is to not honor those like capitalist consumerist holidays.
Yeah.
And not drive ourselves into a frenzy and overwork ourselves just because we're trying to honor this holiday where you're just consuming.
Yeah.
Because what we don't see, like what I think the mass doesn't see on the laborer side, is that they're working their ass off like every day. The day after, let's say the day after Thanksgiving is when they start preparing for Christmas and New Year's.
Yep.
Like it just begins to build, and that's when we start getting into that frenzy of like, how do we prepare for Christmas? We're going to bank on this holiday. We want to make sure to get that money, and we want to make sure to generate all of the food and the services that we can so that people can consume this. And I'm thinking, okay, well, what if we created new rituals where we are celebrating ourselves on a quote unquote off day, not a holiday,
Exactly.
once a month, instead of
It's your
putting all
day.
this. Yeah, it's your day.
Yeah,
Instead of
your
putting
day.
all the pressure on like, 2, 3, 4 days of the year, the pressure's on the laborer to get all of that stuff together.
And it's like
Right.
not even just the specific days, it's like the days surrounding it, gearing up to it.
Yeah.
It's just, it really takes the soul out of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and also it takes the soul out of the work, out of the integrity, and just overall the passion
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
what you're doing. The hospitality industry is driven by such passionate individuals, almost to a fault. I mentioned earlier how I just have been known to just keep working myself like that's a fine thing, but it's not a fine thing, and I'm working on it.
Yeah.
But I feel if, again, through my experience, that it was okay to not necessarily be on all the time,
Yeah.
then I would have a different experience. I've had a fortunate experience, but in regards to the physical aspect of it, I mean,
I just realized that we never talked about beverages.
yeah.
I'm gonna pull
So
that back real quick. Do we want to?
Still rolling.
yeah, we're
Oh,
still
we're always still
we're
rolling.
still rolling.
Okay.
So, I mean, has everyone been enjoying their tasty brew?
Okay, this athletic brewing company.
Hold on, let me set you up for it.
Okay.
Oh,
ASMR.
Yeah, there we go. That's, yeah. Joey, what you were saying?
I lost my train of thought because that was so relaxing.
Yes. Yes.
So this athletic brewing company, Upside Down, non-alcoholic golden ale.
Yeah.
Okay, when I took a sip, I was like, if you didn't tell me it was non-alcoholic,
Right.
I wouldn't have known.
Right.
It tastes. It just
Tastes like a solid brew.
Yeah, solid brew.
Absolutely. So shout out to them. I am enjoying their IPA. So Vienna Malt. Shout out to Vienna Malt and Athletic Brewing. So thank you so much.
For real. I am not an IPA person.
Okay.
Which is why I chose the
Golden Ale.
golden ale.
Mhm.
But
Truly golden.
it really is,
Truly,
and
yeah.
it's,
They can back it up. Mhm.
it's amazing to see that like we're moving towards better options for non-alcoholic beverages, and you're not forced to like drink something that doesn't taste good.
Right. Because it's still providing that beverage experience. And with this environment, this podcast, et cetera, really looking to emulate those post-shift conversations.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't have to be wildly faded in order to have them.
To speak the truth about the injustices that face us on a daily basis, working within an industry that is only built on the backs of laborers.
Let them know. let them know.
Especially people of color.
Yes.
Especially. Yes. Perfect transition.
Well, okay. Everything we know come from Black people.
Yeah.
Goddamn right.
Everything that is commodified in capitalism comes from Black culture and Black people. This whole country founded on Black backs. And
I want you to hear me nodding vigorously as they are talking. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge that, especially like as a spiritual person who is like, you know, studying herbalism and doing a lot of my own work and looking to Black spiritualists and also benefiting from like their work in herbalism because of their ancestral knowledge. That's one way that for me to get the insight to be like, everything that we know, everything that we've ever like commodified, we've sold, that we have gained in terms of like access, knowledge, money, has come from Black people.
Yeah.
And for some reason, probably racism and colonization, in the social sense, like that's like not acknowledged whatsoever.
No.
Specifically in the industry where Black folks don't get the credit, recognition, acknowledgement, opportunities, basic human decency that other people do. And the more that I see, like the more that I witnessed this and found out about other people's stories about this through the call out of fat rice, it just kind of made everything that I thought for a while concrete. And every day that I'm learning more about myself and the way that I benefit from Black folks, it just brings that more forward to me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still learning every day as a Black person, like how I sort of moved through the industry is not necessarily because they need like one queer brown woman in a kitchen, but it's more of the fact that like I'm closer to the aesthetic of whiteness, so I am acceptable as a brown person.
And we totally talked about that before.
Yeah, and it's because like I have to do a lot of work with myself and about like what I sound like and like how educated I am makes it easier for me now to speak up for people who are actually being offended by the shit that I hear. And they're like, well, it's not about you. And it's like, even then it's still, as a Black woman, I'm doing someone else's work constantly. And it's nice to like hear from other people that that's true, because I think it all the time, but I don't get like the verification, you know? And I think that a lot of, go ahead.
Well, I feel like the verification is, you know, filtered through, you know, the Caucasian lens. You know, that's where the verification goes, sadly, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And obviously the pendulum is shifting, right? You know, so
is it?
Yes.
Seemingly so, seemingly so, but also I agree with Joey that yes, it is. There's a ways to go.
Yeah.
But
it is happening.
Yeah, and from the you had mentioned Nariba before, curtain culture.
Yeah.
I can't reference
that's that
specifically.
9 of Cups life.
Okay.
Where just kidding. If you listen to the first one, you know what I'm talking about. But as a refresher, 9 of Cups is all about everything seemingly being really well put together, front of house style. But then behind the closed curtains or behind closed doors, you have a lot of shit you need to be working on. And I feel like, you know, we got a long way to go.
Yeah, and just beginning part of that process, which is acknowledgement and talking about it, because what I've always believed with, you know, the intention of this platform and also just industry dialogue in general, it's if you identify with some of the things that we're talking about or things that you've heard or, you know, these exposés or features on, you know, chefs and brands and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, who knew?
Yeah.
It's like the actual question is, who didn't give a shit? Because you're already showing when you were supporting them in the first place that you never did proper due diligence to dive into the inner culture of something that you were so widely celebrating. And a lot of that comes on the backs of Black and brown people. I can speak, pardon me, I want to say like specifically just about the Black experience. This is not to minimize the brown experience. I'm just speaking on the Black experience. Joey, you look like you want to say something.
Well,
so come on in.
It goes back to pedestals, right? Like, capitalism, it's very common to have like just like a spokesperson for a company, and people are like, oh, I recognize that face. They have it put together. And, you know, like, of course, behind the curtain, they don't. And then they kind of like project this like ideal vision of who they are, and they're like, I'll buy stuff from them, or I trust them, or they know better because they project this image. And again, robs them of their wholeness. They're just human beings.
Yeah.
And what happens is we rob ourselves of the opportunity to acknowledge that we're all on the same level.
Yeah.
And that there is something to be learned there. Like,
Completely.
The only reason why anyone would project that is because that is the ideal version of maybe themselves. Like, they're kind of looking in the mirror of like, I wish I looked this way. And it doesn't do us any favors to dismiss the fact that, you know, we all fuck up and we have flaws, and that we don't have it perfect. And we're not perfect.
And no matter
only
what
human
sort of PR spin you want to put on it, it won't make you perfect either.
Exactly. Because you do have a PR team behind you, and other people are speaking for you.
Right. And
Right.
then also, that is a certain level of accessibility that just isn't
feasible for everyone.
right.
Yeah.
So,
And like, you know, a lot of people, myself included, you know, there are some times where we just don't have the grace. And that's okay, because like I'm still learning, you're still learning. And what is important is to keep showing up. And if you keep showing up, of course you are going to fuck up.
Yeah.
But if the important thing is to remain kind to yourselves and remember, I'm going to fuck up because I'm learning. And this is the hardest part of it.
Are you my therapist?
No, I'm
do you
just
want to
talking.
be mine? Would you like to be mine?
I'm just repeating what my therapist repeats to me.
Okay, yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay. All right.
She literally said to me, yeah, maybe there are times where you're ungraceful, but hey, welcome to being a human. She said that to me yesterday.
Yes.
Wow.
Listen, respect.
Yeah.
Respect.
Yeah, we'd love to, talk a little bit about the potential elephant in the room.
Fat rice.
Mm.
So, okay, I'm gonna take you through a trip. It's like a POV, a point of view.
Beautiful.
Imagine you were laid off from your job, and you are in this very reactive, hypervigilant state, and no one knows what's going on with the pandemic, and you're at home just day in and day out, and you're tuning into social media because that's your only point of connection to people.
I think we've been there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And one day you see that your former employer is doing meal kits, and you're watching this video and you're like, what is this dish? And he's talking about how it's like a Vietnamese rice noodle dish of my descent. And there's like a Malaysian sambal, and there's dwarf lettuce, and there's like some sort of mushroom, and there's, like some like a vinaigrette. And then you realize, whoa, that's supposed to be a dish of my culture, but I didn't recognize it because there are all these weird ass ingredients in it that would never be put in there by your own people.
Yes.
So you repost it on Instagram and you call it out, and then your inbox starts to flood with just person after person just telling you stories of how he was extremely abusive when they worked for him. And this was my trip. This was my experience calling out Fat Rice. Okay, so I was in a very hypervigilant, reactive state in this time, and I was very angry and frustrated with myself and also what was happening with the world.
Why were you frustrated with yourself?
It was just like a time where I was kind of going back and forth, I need to not worry about what's going to happen in the future. I need to be present, but it's hard to be present, and I'm not, I'm not using the tools of therapy that I've learned in this time. I just didn't have the capacity, period.
Yeah.
And so I, tuning into the internet, which is like a vortex of energy, everyone just kind of projects their energy onto it. Yeah. And it drives me into a deep hole of anxiety.
Anxiety heightened.
Ooh, heightened. Yeah. Everything's heightened there. And I absorbed this too. So when I was watching that, I started getting really angry about, okay, this is supposed to be a Vietnamese dish. I didn't even recognize this as a Vietnamese dish. And that was my initial reaction. And then I remembered working for him and how completely shitty he was and abusive. And then I kind of spiraled into this like reactionary state because other people were sharing their own experiences of abuse
and it's
working in his
hard
kitchen.
not to take in some of that energy yourself when
Yeah.
you're like, shit, it's not only me.
Yeah.
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 Correct.
And also like extending compassion to people who have experienced it too, because that really fucked me up.
Yeah.
And
there's like a weird camaraderie with that, which is if you're, seemingly bound by that trauma, that
it's literally part of terms of service. Like
Right.
when you work for someone, it's expected that you're like, well, I signed up for this and I now have to adjust the way that I feel about things.
bullshit.
To
Right.
like survive in this structure.
okay, but who told you that?
Everyone I've ever worked for, that's why it's in there.
Yeah, the middle person
I
who's
know.
like, you get paid the most, therefore you are here the most.
Yeah.
Like they tell you that over and over, so you begin to I began to dismiss my own needs while in the industry and working for other people.
Oh yeah.
And then it just became
Same.
kind of the norm. Yeah? You too, Justin?
Yeah, I realized really, I want to say, when I was a part of the Michelin level world, they want you to feel as if you're such a crucial part in,
The
your
family.
the family, the overall team trajectory, the prestige of it all. But then also what they don't care about is you putting yourself under so much pressure that you then figure out different ways to cope, which obviously we're going to talk about that in, future
With
episodes.
Joey, hopefully. Question mark? What? Maybe, yeah.
I'll be there.
Cool. Nice.
Perfect. Yes. And it doesn't matter the level that you're on. It's still all of that weight and that sort of falsehood that they allow to navigate your experience, because the idea of potentially calling off because you have to take care of home, you have to take care of number one, it's, the chef would never.
Yeah.
So how dare you? Or if you do, there's this passive aggressive dialogue. So it's like, oh, well,
It's not even worth
so-and-so-
taking the time
Exactly.
off.
It's just like so-and-so has decided to grace us with their presence. I'm like, well,
Okay, what I'm hearing is pedestals again, right?
Yeah.
it keeps, exactly.
Yeah. And like also the chef would never, well, you're also denying the needs of your chef because they're denying the needs themselves, and like you're dehumanizing them by saying that. And like that kind of just rolls downhill down to any other laborer.
Which is sort of what was happening for you. It's like you worked with this person who then used your culture essentially to make a dish and tell people what it should be like when it's not theirs to share like that. Like there's a difference between like an interpretation of a thing and then like straight up hijacking someone's like work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so like to be fair, I rewatched the video yesterday and he said this is our take on a Vietnamese noodle dish. And I was like, you didn't even need to mention that because it's unrecognizable. You could like, you're just like throwing in that buzzword. I know that makes money. I know that's what your business is about. But, and then, other buzzwords too, like Malaysian sambal, like it's just sort of like
It's
fetishizing. Yeah.
To convince the person experiencing it that they know what they're talking about.
Exactly. Like, hey, we're bringing you back there. We've studied this, so we're going to bring you there. Not that I'm saying that he was claiming that, but like that is what it comes off as. And as a person with that power and that that kind of what's the word, platform, it's his responsibility to outright say, hey, I've been to Vietnam, but I don't know the culture very well. I did see this on the streets of Vietnam, and this is this is how I've eaten it at home, or how I've come to know this through the restaurant, but this is not how they made it there.
Yeah, and I think that it's really important to actually take stock and take care of native people's experience within their cuisine.
I'd agree.
Yeah, instead of it being like, I went to Vietnam and I know not everything. I know that this isn't traditional. However, something quite substantial went down on social media in regards to a well-regarded chef mentioning Korean cuisine and what that means to him, and how the whitewashed interpretation is offensive because you're claiming it to be something that it isn't.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when you have such a platform, again, to your point, Joey, you have a responsibility to ensure that you are approaching it with such care and appropriate due diligence.
Yeah.
And there's the accountability, right? That's the accountability work we're talking about.
Yeah.
Another way to take accountability for that is being like, hey, 20% of proceeds go to the Vietnamese community, or, the Asian community that's being hit really hard right now because of COVID, because of the racist claims that people are making because of COVID. Bringing that back to the community from which you are borrowing ideas from, and then giving them back what you're banking on, right?
Exactly.
Instead of this colonizer mentality of like, well, I discovered this dish, and this is my take on a Vietnamese noodle dish, which is like the premise of the Fat Rice restaurant, from what I can perceive, and then treating it as such.
Yes.
In this time.
Yeah.
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 It's
Yeah. So the work is being done,
it's being done.
but
It's going to take it's going to take a while for us to get to a place where people see it as accountability and not as an attack. Because things have been set up
Completely
in
agree.
such a way for so long where there has been no accountability, that when you try to have a conversation with people, they automatically become defensive
you
instead
say
of
one thing that somebody does not like, and then, you're in the wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I'm just simply verbally responding to a physical action that you did, but call me crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but who's that? Well, we can go on and on. And Joey, this is not your last time with us. This is your first, but
Yeah.
it won't be.
It won't be the last. No.
And as we, wrap this episode up, I would like to, cheers to you, Joey, and cheers to the new year with our lovely, lovely friends, Charles Heisdeck. Max, can you open this? Thank you so much. Joey, how do you feel?
I feel great.
Yeah, how was your time with us?
I felt at home. You made me feel very comfortable. And I knew that I was okay. So I hadn't talked about Fat Rice since the call out, which was the early June. And I hadn't really talked to people outside of journalists around that time about it because there was a lot of processing that I needed to do.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I wanted to get into a real conversation about it that was also at my capacity, it would be with you. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming.
As we're 6 feet apart, just no air hugs.
Air hugs.
I feel it. I feel it in
Air
there.
hugs. Air hugs. And, truthfully, on that note, I would like to obviously thank our friends at Athletic Brewing for and also our friends at Charles Heisdeck. And finally, for our good friends at Ace Hotel Chicago for allowing us to have such an important conversation in their space.
Yes. Thank you so much, guys.
Yes.
Thank you.
And cheers to you, Joey.
Cheers.
Obviously, cheers to you, Nariba.
Cheers to you both, Nariba,
Nice.
Justin, Max.
Yes, Max.
so
of
much.
course. Thank you. This is the way that we're going to do this now. Perfect. Wonderful.
The full stretch.
Yes, the full stretch. And
Cheers.
Or as they say in the furniture business, cheers.
Oh my God.
And on that note, shouts to y'all. I had a good time. Thanks so much.
Wait, social media.
Yeah.
Where can we
Yeah.
find you guys?
Yeah.
Well, you can find me at What's Beco on Instagram. So what with an S. So what's BECO on Instagram. And I'll see you out there.
Nice. You can find me at Flavor Supreme on Instagram. I actually have the app where you can.
It makes
Do you have
it.
right now? Do you have it right now?
No.
Oh,
I had
it's
the
okay.
app.
It's okay. We're gonna find it. We're gonna add it right there.
It's gonna happen.
Love it.
Yes.
Yeah, find me at Flavor Supreme on Instagram. I'm also part of Snack Collective
Yeah.
on Instagram as well. That's just, I think it's just one word, Snack Collective.
Yes.
Okay. Sweet.
At Snack Collective.
Yeah.
At Snack Collective.
And you can find me, Nariba, your girl, at Rebaru, REBARU, on Instagram. Let me know.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone.